Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this another of the Posturite lunchtime webinars. My name is John Ridd, and I'm taking the anchor role for today's presentation. As you can see on your screen, that's entitled "Why Ergonomics Matters When Selecting Office Furniture." And this today is going to be presented by David Kirtley, who I guess some of you may know. He's Posturite Sales Manager for the Office Environment Division. And I'm guessing that for this presentation he's going to be drawing on his considerable experience that he's had in that role. Certainly from my perspective as an ergonomics consultant, I am a strong advocate of ergonomic furniture. And I often hear the refrain from clients that we can't afford it. Ergonomic furniture is so expensive, and particularly how do we know that it's going to be effective at resolving any problems or improving productivity? And I believe that these are clearly some of the issues that David is going to deal with as he goes through his presentation. And whilst it's my clear belief that good ergonomic furniture will provide significant benefit to an organisation, for this really to be effective, you have to use the furniture as part of an holistic approach, where the work organisation also recognises the needs and benefits and indeed supports the use of that equipment. But better get off my soapbox and let David tell you his side of the story, really. But I should first of all do a couple of housekeeping points. For those of you not familiar with webinars, I'm sure most of you are these days, but you should have a panel to the right of your screen, and if you have any technical problems with the transmission, then please, if that's still available to you to view, then do send our technical people a question or a comment as to what your problem is, and they'll try and help you out. Also in the panel to the right is a space for asking questions. So if you've got any questions for David about the content of the presentation, then please put them in there, type them in there, and I'll try and at the end I'll try and ask him some of these. If we don't get through them all because of time, then what we will do is ask David to answer these offline, but then we'll put them on the website later on so that you can have a look and see the answers there. So let me now hand straight over to David, and we can hear about how to improve our productivity using proven ergonomic products. So David, over to you then.
Brilliant, thanks John. A warm welcome to everyone. Hopefully it's a sunny day for everyone there. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon for our webinar on why ergonomics matters on selecting office furniture. So what I want to have a look at is the notion that the procurement of furniture should be regarded by a company as an investment rather than an expense. And we're all aware that musculoskeletal disorders having such a huge impact on staff absence and a significant cost to businesses as a whole, then ergonomics should be a key consideration when purchasing any office furniture. So this webinar will look into the true cost of an average employee in the short, medium and long term as well. Without going into specific product presentations, I'll present a few illustrations on how much ergonomic furniture really costs you as an organisation, and in some cases how soon you should expect your investment back. We'll look at other employee costs such as national insurance, pensions, health insurance, etc., and how the cost of ergonomic work tools are a minute fraction of these other costs. So I will touch on musculoskeletal issues relating to DSE as far as I can. I'll show how a small improvement in this area can offer a much larger payback. But most importantly, however, I'll show you how providing your staff with good, proven ergonomic products can have a huge impact on the overall productivity of your organisation. So John touched on it earlier. I'm the sales manager for office environments. We've been working for Posturite for over 13 years now. So moved over to the role as office environments over the last couple of years. And if you want any details about what we do there, the web address is there, so you can have a bit more information about the division. And there's a few case studies there as well that might be of interest. So to get things going, I want to consider the cost of one typical employee at your organisation. So the example I'm going to use is say a customer service manager working at your head office, earning around about £20,000 a year. So you can use your own examples here. It might be a I don't know, HR administrator, receptionist. I'm sure you have someone who matches this salary at your company. But let us consider the actual cost of employment to the company, taking into account their salary costs as well as other costs of the organisation. And I think it's fair to say that it's recognised that employees' salary is factored by about sort of 1.5 to 1.8 to give a true cost to the organisation. In this example, I'm going to use 1.5 partly because it makes the maths slightly easier. But these additional costs are made up of inflexible costs to an organisation. So things like national insurance, pension, software licenses, IT equipment and support, administrative overheads in terms of HR, payroll, and various other costs in there as well. So these are what I regard as inflexible costs. What I haven't taken into account is other things such as, I don't know, sickness days, maternity, paternity leave, jury service, additional pension contributions if your company's that way inclined, company cars, private health insurance, some of the other employee benefits. So in some cases, I think these additional costs can really put that figure from 1.5 up to over 2, and in some cases 2.5. What we're also assuming as well is that employees are productive for 100% of the time, and according to recent surveys, up to a third of the time is wasted. So we're looking about sort of 60 to 70% productive time while at work. So in this case, our employee whose salary is £20,000 a year is more likely to be costing the business about £30,000. Okay, so this is year one. So let's look at the long-term scenario and assume that over a 10-year period, your employee costs you around about £380,000. So I've factored in a 5% increase year on year for additional costs there. So an example I've used, the daily cost of the organisation broken down is about £125 per day, or about £15 per hour based on an 8-hour day. So if we can agree for the moment at least that these figures are representative of the true cost of an employee, then we can move on to the additional costs and how furniture, and particularly good proven ergonomic furniture, can be seen as a fraction of this total cost. If there is any disagreement on these costs, then I can happily send you some information and a couple of links, even a tool for calculating these costs for your own organisation, or better still, I could come and meet you and go through these costs in person if you wish. So how much does a company spend on average on an office chair? And again, this is obviously company specific, but we say on our experience, on average, we think it's about £200 a chair. And this is going to give you a decent work chair, maybe something at 5-year warranty, basic functions, a degree of reliability and quality, but not a lot more than that. And if we look at a proven ergonomic task chair with proven ergonomic credentials, and that's the key for us, it's proven, then for the purpose of this illustration, it costs in the region of around about £500. So yeah, do you know what? A significant increase of £300 against the basic task chair that companies are buying anyway. What we'll also see with these ergonomic chairs is that often they hold a 10-year warranty. So how much does this cost in the long term? £300 difference. So we said earlier £380,000 over 10 years. So to put it in context, about less than 0.1% of the total employee cost, or to put it in other words, about £30 per year. Again, broken down, that's about 12 pence per day. Okay, when you're probably spending as an organisation maybe £1 or £2 per head on tea and coffee, then 12p on one of the most commonly used work tools is arguably insignificant. 12 pence is also about 3 or 4 minutes work a day. Just to put this in perspective, anyone knows the Shard in London's just over 300 metres high. Basketball's about 30 centimetres across. So basketball's about a thousandth of the size of the Shard. Anyone's been to the Eiffel Tower, you take 2 to 3 steps up the Eiffel Tower, you're a thousandth of the way there. So putting it in perspective, those are what the costs look like. What we're also assuming is that your basic task chair will last 10 years, which we believe is more likely to last anywhere between sort of 6 and 8 years. So you have to replace that chair at least once during the lifetime of the quality product with the 10-year warranty. And with some products now offering lifespan data as part of the EPD declaration, some of the environmental credentials, we can show that some of these chairs have a life expectancy in excess of 15 years. So buying a cheaper chair can be viewed as a false economy. But what I'd like to present further is the reduction in work absence, and more importantly, as I mentioned earlier, in our opinion, the increase in productivity, both of which have significant benefits to the bottom line. So let's have a look at the stats, and I've referenced most of these as I can. So musculoskeletal disorders still make up about 40% of all work-related illness, so it's just ahead of stress-related illness. What is more difficult for us to identify is the proportion of days lost to DSE related, and the main activities from this report that were attributed by the user as either causing their condition or making their condition worse were manual handling, awkward and tiring positions, and keyboard work. The symptoms, again, in this HSE funded report, were broken down with headaches, eye discomfort, neck pain, back pain, and shoulder pain. All of these which were frequently recorded. Out of interest, when I was looking through these stats, there were some regional variations. London had the lowest percentage, and there's suggestion there that because it's a younger workforce and there's more self-employed people, that could be one of the reasons. Look at the higher percentage was East Midlands, Wales, and the North East at about 2.5%. But again, going back to what I was saying, it's difficult to put an actual figure on DSE related work absence, and I suppose if anyone has any reliable information on this, either as general data or specific for your organization, then we'd very much welcome this. But if we break down the information that we do have, then on average about 4.5 days lost in sickness absence per worker per year. 40% of work absence is musculoskeletal, so let's say that's about 2 days lost to musculoskeletal disorders per year. Again, taking this further, if we assume that half of this is DSE related, then it's only 1 day lost per year per employee, which, you know, isn't overly significant in the short term, but we're saying that's, you know, still per employee at £125 a day. Over 10 years, this can cost upwards of £1,500 per employee, so 3 times as much as the cost of our task chair. Now, what I'm not saying is that our chair is going to get rid of your DSE related problems. What I am saying is that it can help. Okay, and those figures that I've put there is for direct costs. It doesn't consider indirect costs such as, you know, your occupational health or health and safety support, HR support, any replacement staff, and possibly from a company's perspective, any missed deadlines or service levels by that person being off work. And as a company, we're getting more and more examples of our clients buying good ergonomic chairs earlier in the presentation, and we can start putting an actual cost benefit on this and start to look at return of investment. So if we assume that we can increase productivity, do you know what? We'll go for a conservative estimate. We'll go for 3%. Then the payback is significant. Employee costs £125 per day. 3% of 125 is £3.75. When you're looking at a chair that costs £500, then the break-even point is 134 days or 6 months. So putting that in perspective, it's 5% of the total life cycle of the chair, which in this case is 10 years. So it might be a worthwhile exercise for you to do this in your organization. And again, we can help with working this out and studies that we've done with other organizations. So that's seating, that's our favorite subject. And looking at other furniture, I want to touch briefly on height adjustable desks, laptop solutions, dual screens, and flat screen monitor arms as well. And as John mentioned earlier, we believe that every element of the workstation can have a benefit to productivity if selected wisely, and again in coordination with effective education. So first of all, let's look at height adjustable desks. And you know, just to clarify, a desk that's quickly adjusted either electronically or manually, with a height range of anywhere between sort of 60 to 120, 125 centimeters, which allows the user to alternate their work position from sitting to standing and vice versa. So that's just clarification, so apologies for those of you who know already. But research showed that people using sit-stand tables needed less frequent breaks, nearly 50% less breaks, and the breaks were shorter. So that was due to the fact that using sit-stand tables is less tiring. Okay, and it also means that they're able to work more minutes in a standing day, in a standard working day. They spend less time away from their desk. So I've referenced the studies as much as possible. I've got further details on them if anyone wishes. We looked at, sorry, just go back one. A further study in '94 looked at the introduction of sit-stand working desks at a courier company, which showed that employees spent an average of 23% of their time at the desk standing. The results from that showed that body discomfort decreased by an average of 62%, and the occurrence of injuries and illnesses decreased by more than half. So again, there's some really sort of significant research there. And again, what we know of what's going on in the industry in certain universities, I'm aware of 3 universities doing existing studies on height adjustable desks, and I think they're going to be looking at productivity, work absence, and other factors, hormone levels, cortisol levels, and all the other factors that we believe that height adjustable desks can help with, or certainly the variation of posture. There's other benefits to it, and that's the zero cost to adjusting desks to different height users, and this is often in hundreds of pounds. And we know of companies who pay, you know, £200–300 for their facilities company to come in and raise a desk by a couple of inches. So looking again at the long-term cost of things like that, it really makes those factors negligible. It's also reported to have less discomfort in the neck, back and shoulders. And what we're going to do later on this year is specifically look at height adjustable desking and look at the actual cost, the benefits, comfort, absence and productivity, and just really sort of take this, what we think is a really important subject and really relevant subject, to another level. So we've covered desks and chairs. Next is computer screens, and I think Bill Gates, I think we can all agree, has done okay for himself over the years. He says, on my desk I have 3 screens synchronized to form a single desktop, and I can drag items from one screen to the next. Once you have that large display area, you never go back because it has a direct impact on productivity. And again, there's research to back this up. It's shown that computer users, computer workers, achieve anywhere between 10–15% improved productivity and make 33% fewer mistakes. And I think mistakes is relevant. You know, we all know as an organization how much mistakes can cost, whether it's a missed delivery or it's an incorrect address. So there's significant cost of mistakes. If we can reduce those, can again have a significant cost benefit to the organization. This, for us, if you have a very large team of administrators or information processes, then this can have a huge impact on recruitment costs. And we've seen this firsthand in our customer service and sales support department at Posturite. And we can show that there's greater productivity and fewer errors by these departments by implementing dual screens. There's further studies which isn't as independent. They're funded by NEC and Apple, but they showed that the productivity anywhere between 9 and 52%. But for some specific tasks, it was up to 74%, which, you know, really is start to be significant. Again, looking at the payback of these additional monitors, which, looking at a bit of research I did in the last few days, how much they cost, a decent 19-inch monitor now costs about 80 quid. So looking at the payback on those sort of productivity is less than 7 days. So we can see that 2 monitors can save an exponential amount of time. And looking at examples of this, we can now use laptops with your standard computer screen. A typical setup for most of us, I would have thought, is word processing document with an email and typing from one to the other. Proofing documents, having the original there with the new copy in front of you at the same time. Comparing products and services. Here, in this case, I was taking information from the HSE and plugging it into a spreadsheet. And also, depending on the size of the spreadsheet, working from 2 screens can be a lot more helpful and useful than working from one smaller screen. And again, working from 2 programs. And as ever, it's important that the screens are positioned correctly, which is what I'm going to come on to in a moment. And again, we see it firsthand. And I see our IT guys who they monitor our the activity with our health and safety software packages, and they find it more useful to have the screen positioned in portrait rather than landscape. So I think this brings us on nicely to monitor arms. We all know that viewing distance is important, and the guidance is that the distance should be at least 60 centimeters, but preferably more. A relatively long viewing distance can be less tiring to the eye because basically there's less movement, and they don't have to make as much big adjustments when they're reading the text. So in essence, it's easier to read larger characters than small ones. I think that's common sense. And in other words, at levels which are 10 to 20 degrees below eye level. And again, this helps to reduce eye fatigue. And looking at research, again, that's been done over the years, monitor position reduces discomfort and neck complaints and reduces the static burden on the neck muscles as well. But more importantly, productivity levels increased by 10% in some cases where the screen is positioned correctly. And this too can be seen with laptop solutions, and laptop use is still on the increase, despite the introduction of tablets and iPads in the workplace. I haven't seen any significant research on the tablets and iPads as yet, but again, if someone has that, then we'd love to see it. And I suggest that most people listening to this webinar have a laptop, and I hope that most of you have a laptop solution. And if you don't, then maybe you will after this. And to put it in perspective, the University of London did a survey. Some of their students using laptops, 57% had experienced the aches and pains from using a laptop, and 7% having pain a lot of the time. So it is significant. Basically what we want to do, one way or another, is to separate the screen from the keyboard. It's pretty simple. Okay, and what this can have is a study by a Swedish company on their products, which are called Backer Elkaisen. They managed to show that there was a 17% increase in productivity, 21% increase in perceived comfort, 32% decrease in neck torque. Again, standard laptop use. And again, looking at these return of investments, then some of the laptop solutions range from £60 up to about £150. And again, if we take our employee costs from earlier, and that 17% productivity, we can see payback in as little as 3 days, or 2 weeks at the very most. So again, some really sort of significant, information there. So that's it for the presentation on specific products, and I hope you found the information useful. In the last few minutes of this presentation, I really want to briefly cover the chair selection process and the way that some companies typically go about this, and also offer suggestions on how to make this process more effective. We'll have a real quick look at leasing and how significant cost of business can be spread out into smaller manageable chunks. Okay, and then at the end we'll just summarize the presentation. So only a few more minutes if you'll just bear with me. And what I'd like to do is look at the chair selection process and see how some organizations go about selecting chairs for their business. And yes, we all agree that there has to be some degree of employee engagement, but I believe that this needs to be done and approached with caution. And I think we've probably all seen it, the success of a chair trial is dependent upon the initial comfort of the chair, and maybe the chairs are put in the canteen and employees are offered to sit in it for a couple of minutes over one lunchtime. And as a result, it's safe to assume that the chair that's the most comfortable over those 2 minutes will come out on top. And what I dare to suggest is if you put an armchair in that canteen for 2 minutes, then this will be more comfortable in the short term. But what I'm pretty sure about is it doesn't mean the armchair is best for your business. Similarly, I know of chairs scoring better in user trials because of colour only. And specification of the chair was exactly the same. One was black and the other one was red and silver. And the red and silver chair scored significantly higher on comfort. So chair trials, we believe, should be done over a longer period of time. Yes, with employee engagement, but looking at a number of different aspects, such as ease of use, so it's adjustable between users, proven ergonomic credentials, any effects on productivity, the longevity of the chair and the quality of the product, and its long-term comfort. And this might be viewed as slightly controversial, but how often is the chair selection process handled by architects and designers? And we're seeing this more often now. And while we as a company, we have to be able to nurture our relationships with designers and architects, I wouldn't tell you how to design your building, and why should they dictate to you which chairs your most valuable assets, your employees, should be sitting in. And unfortunately, the gap between form and function is getting closer and closer. And proven ergonomic chairs are starting to look good now as well. We also accept that chairs cost money, and actually the cost of a decent chair can be significantly more than the norm, and we touched on that earlier. So the appetite of the business may be to adopt better seating, but then the back balance or the cash flow might not necessarily support that. So leasing is now more common than ever before, and as an organization, you're probably leasing your cars, your IT and photocopying equipment. It's more than likely that you're leasing your buildings as well, so why not lease the furniture as well? And the real costs of this can be spread over anywhere between sort of 2 and 5 years. But those breakdown costs, meaning those figures are only a few pence a day, are actually a reality. And there's significant benefits there, and I won't go to them in too much detail. You have them on the screen there. But what ultimately enables you to get what is best for you and your employees in the long term. So in summary, we looked at the procurement of furniture and should be considered as an investment and not a cost. And that the actual cost, and so it's really insignificant compared to other staff costs. And the example we gave was probably someone on a lower than average wage. Again, you start scaling that up, then those costs of a £500, £600, £700 chair against someone who might be paid 40, 50, 60,000 pounds really starts to get insignificant. We looked at the proven benefits and longevity of the products and how that can have a significant effect to your bottom line as an organization. And maybe a suggestion that you can do your own research on productivity in your company. If you've got those measuring criteria that you can do as an organization, then, you know, whether we help with you or whether you do that on your own, you can do your own research there as well. Height adjustable desks, we touched on that, and probably not as expensive as you think, you know, now starting from about £500 each, and I'm seeing the cost of those coming down. And again, we'll touch on that later in the year. And the selection process for furniture and products, in particular chairs, needs to be robust and well thought out. And I suppose our last final message is, you know, employees are our best asset. We pay them to do a job, and surely we want them to do their job as best as they possibly can. Supplying them with the best products is going to do that. So employees are our best asset, so we might as well look after them. So that's me done now. I will hand back over to John Ridd, our anchor. I'm sure there's a few questions that have come in the meantime. I hope I haven't confused anyone or baffled anyone with too much data. I hope it's been useful, and obviously if there are any questions that have come up, then John, feel free to fire away.
Okay, David. Well, thank you very much for that. And it was indeed a lot of data, a lot of interesting and impressive data, and probably a little bit difficult to absorb in the short period of the presentation. But thank you for doing that. What I would say to everybody is, of course, that you can, if you want to, go back and revisit some of this. You can have a look at the Posturite website later on today, when we'll put the presentation on the website for you to go through again if you wish. Certainly from all that presentation, David, if I needed convincing, then consider me convinced. I think it was very impressive, so thank you for that. We have had a number of questions, as you rightly suggest. I will take just one with you, but I think the sunshine is calling, so we won't carry on with the questions too far, but we will put the questions online later on, and again we will answer them all. Well, we'll ask David to answer them all, and they'll be online. But just let's take one quickly. It says here, and this is one that's close to my heart, I suppose. How can we determine that the word ergonomic is correctly applied when selecting the furniture? So, David, do you have a view? I'm sure you have a comment on it.
Yeah, there's no standards that you have to hit to be able to call something ergonomic. And I'm sure we see stuff on a daily basis with using that terminology. And I suppose all I'd say is just, I suppose, look into it in a bit more detail, question it. So for us specifically, it's furniture. So I see chairs that saying they're ergonomic. I've seen them in the local
Yeah.
stationery company, and they're saying they're ergonomic. It's like, well, what do you base that upon? Where's your information that makes you say that that chair is ergonomic? What are you basing that term on? And I think it's just for everyone to start sort of, I suppose, challenging. We saw it 10, 15 years ago when people could call themselves physiotherapists without the chartered status, and that's changed now. So I think the same with the ergonomics. Question it. What's the information coming from? What basis are they using that term? So that's how I'd answer it in a nutshell.
And I think you did right. It is a worry, certainly to me as an ergonomist, but we would encourage people, yes, to be a bit more questioning. That just because it says it is certainly does not mean that it is an ergonomic piece of equipment. Okay, a number of the other questions, which I will just mention here because I think it could be useful for everyone, are asking about the presentation and indeed the references that you had there. I don't know whether that's possible. We may have to talk to the technical people whether we can add to the presentation perhaps a list of the references that you've used and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that as a separate document.
Separate thing, but that will all. I think there are people are asking for a link to it as well. I think is there a? Do you have a conclude an end slide to your presentation? Because I know sometimes with these seminars, the end slide actually shows the web link for this.
Let's have a look.
And
yes,
there it is. Well done. Hopefully that's come up on everybody's screen and you can get to the webinars via that link. And on that, I think I'll draw this to a close and thank you again, David, once again for that excellent presentation. And thank all of you listeners as well for taking the time to join us. As it says on your screen, we hope you will be with us for the next presentation, which apparently is going to be presented by myself, on ergonomics perspectives of personal injury litigation, and that will be on June the 20th. So if you can join us for that one, then please do. I hope you found today useful, and please, if you wish to have a CPD certificate for attending this webinar, then please do let us know. You just have to email us at this address, and we will send one over to you. So finally, thanks to everyone, and please have a good afternoon, and goodbye.